Some of you have asked for a video where I talk about my simple DIY sump system that I have on both my 210 gallon and also on the 300 gallon behind me. So I decided to go ahead and provide you some information on that. And for some folks, getting into sump filtration for the first time can be a little bit scary, a little bit intimidating. It certainly was for me when I first set up my first sump, and I hope this video helps. So first off, the basics of a sump filter are really the same as every other filter. You're moving water from the aquarium, cycling it through media, and whether it be mechanical filtration or biological media, things of that nature, floss, whatever it might be, and then returning it to the tank. Just like you do with a hang-on back filter or a sponge filter, pulling it through and running it out with the help of the pressure from the bubbles, or whatever filter you're using, is the same principle. And probably the biggest concern that people have about sumps is flooding. And once you understand how to run a sump, that's not going to be a concern any longer. You're going to have probably a greater likelihood to have a leak or flooding from a canister. Probably more so there than you will with a correctly set up sump filter. So first off, my sumps are DIY. I don't go out and buy a sump. There's nothing wrong with the kind of sumps that you can buy. They do tend to be very pricey, and they contain different, very neatly laid out compartments. In my simple and humble opinion, for me, all I need really is a way to filter the water, to run the water through something and then back to the tank. I don't need a chamber where I can set up aquaponics or another chamber to set up a reactor of some kind, or I just don't need that. These are simple freshwater tanks, and they just need the water to be filtered and to gain some nitrification, some benefits from beneficial bacteria. So my sumps really just pull water from the tank, and using an overflow system where rather than overflowing over the edges of the tank, the water goes through simply the teeth that are cut out in an overflow box, and that box might be inside your tank and drilled, in other words, stuck onto the back of your tank, or it might be in the corner, like an actual box that comes up in the corner of your tank with teeth cut out on the top, or it might be a hang-on back. They have hang-on back filters that attach to the back of your aquarium, and that can do the same thing. Basically, they just siphon water out of the aquarium. And then what happens is it goes into a tank that is under your aquarium, at which point water is pumped back. Now, the concern people have is, well, wait a minute, what about when the power goes off and that water is no longer being moved from that bottom tank? What's going to happen? Well, the extra amount of water that is being circulated is going to back siphon or settle down into your sump. Your water level is going to drain to the bottom of the teeth of whatever overflow system you're using. And that's as far as it's going to drain. It's not going to keep draining beyond that. The only other place you have a concern on water getting back to the sump would be a back siphon from the return tubes. So you have these return hoses that return water to your tank. They can then back siphon into the sump aquarium. But there are safeguards for that. For the back siphoning, what you do is you put one-way valves, and that actually allows the water to travel only in one direction, and so it stops a back siphon. And you can see the one-way valve that I have on this aquarium. You can also, if you're using a soft plumbing like I do on the 210 gallon, you can drill a hole. You can drill a hole in the return just below the water line. So any siphon that is created is broken and will stop actually flowing back to the aquarium. Now here's the trick. You fill your aquarium, your entire system, so that the sump is at a level so that if everything were to turn off, it will not overflow. Once you understand what that level is, and in my case, I have a piece of tape on the sump on this 40-gallon breeder, and it shows actually what level I need to be at to run the aquarium and not worry that if the power was to go out, that it would still not overflow the 40-gallon breeder that I'm using as the sump in this particular system. So when you do a water change, let's say you're filling up your aquarium, you fill it up to the point where the sump is at the blue, at the blue piece of tape with the pumps running. And then when you turn the pumps off, the water level will get up to the top of the sump, but not overflow. So what are the advantages of a sump? Well, the obvious ones are, of course, is a lot of water movement. I have two Shisei Syncra 5.0 pumps on this aquarium. A lot of folks are going to two pumps. That way if one fails, they still have something going on, right? Sort of a backup or redundancy. And they're each doing about 1,600 gallons an hour. So there's about 3,200 gallons going on here. And the 210 has 2,700 gallons. So there's a lot of water movement with a sump, and I think it's more than you could possibly get with a canister or a hang-on back filter. The other advantage is, of course, the massive amount of media that you can use, and what that does is it gives you a tremendous amount of surface area for beneficial bacteria to colonize. Now keep in mind, you're only going to get the amount of bacteria that the waste and food in your aquarium can support. It doesn't matter if it spreads out over the substrate, over the walls, the decor, or in your media. So having more media isn't necessarily going to give you more beneficial bacteria. You're going to get the amount of bacteria that you can feed and keep alive. However, if you have it spread out over various sources like a deep substrate and sponges and biomedia and things of this nature, it's going to be less likely to destabilize. So you have a very stable system that really doesn't need to be messed with, except maybe once a year. A lot of people who keep sumps will tell you, well, I do a full clean out once a year. So it doesn't require, once you get it set up and running, it doesn't require much. The other thing is because it gives you extra room, you can put heaters in there. You can put media that you can pull out to immediately cycle and seed a brand new tank. You can have that media in the sump, which I do. I have actually internal filter sponges in the sump that just sit in there, and I pull them out when I need to set up a new aquarium. And of course you have the advantage of the extra water volume that a sump can provide. And of course more water, right, provides more dilution. The solution to pollution is dilution, right? You have more dilution. So the likelihood again of the tank spiking in some area becomes less and less. So I'm a big advocate for sumps. Once you understand the basics of them, that all you're doing is dumping water into them on one end, having it run through media, and then get pumped up on the other end. Once you understand that it's really that simple, you lose any fear of them. Also, you don't have to be a plumber. You don't have to, even though the plumbing is very easy, once you get the hang of it and you have the right tools to cut it and to smooth it out, to deburr it, once you have the tools and the proper PVC cement, things like that, once you have those tools, it's very easy. But you can also go with soft plumbing, just use vinyl hoses, things of that nature, braided hoses, and you don't even have to get into plumbing. It's just a matter of running running long hoses from place to place. And a lot of folks are going with soft plumbing. It has its advantages. So any questions that you have about a sump, I'd be more than happy to answer for you. Like I said in the beginning, I've used all types of filters, and I think sump is the king of filters. But I also like canisters, also like hang-on backs, internals, even sponge filters. They all have their place in the hobby, and somebody isn't a better fish keeper because they keep sumps and someone else doesn't. It's not like that. Be good and an expert in your kind of filtration. But when you decide that you want to get into sumps, don't be afraid. Realize that it's actually very simple, operates off the same principle as your filter that you're using now, and it will have a little bit of a learning curve, but once you're through that, you're going to love it because it requires very little maintenance, provides tremendous flexibility, and you can use all kinds of media. In my case, I'm using 4-inch thick Matten sponges. I'm using some of the Ciporex from Sarah in there. I've got a little bit of Purigen. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff going on. I've got a 1,000-watt heater in there. I've got 2 pumps in there. So it just gives you a little bit of a filter playground to mess around in. And some people even grow plants in them, right? They'll put a pothos down there, or people who have cichlids that destroy plants will grow the plants in the sump, and that way they get the benefits of plants without the fish destroying them. They just have a full spectrum light over the sump to keep that plant healthy. Okay, so there you have it. Ask your questions below. We'll talk about sumps, hang-on backs, sponge filters, and canisters in Saturday's live stream, the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. I hope to see you there. That's Saturday at 11 a.m. Central. And also, if you'd like to support the channel, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, hit that bell, and consider becoming a Patreon monthly supporter. Starts for as little as $3 a month and really helps out. Thank you, my friends. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.